Hello, my name is Tony Beers, and this is Movie Grades.
And just like the movies, we play out our last scene.
The movie I will review for you is X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, before I get into the review, I want to mention that I felt I was a little negative on my last review of Watchmen, a movie I very much liked. So, I'm going to begin this review with the things I liked about the movie. Now, I'll warn you, I'm going to give a lot of spoilers in this review. The best thing about X-Men Origins Wolverine is Hugh Jackman. He is the best at what he does, and that's playing Wolverine. He is a great actor. He owns this role. I cannot think of any other actor playing Wolverine. Another good thing about this movie is the action scenes. This movie has great action in it. The casting of Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is brilliant. I cannot think of a better actor to play this. He is physically fit for this movie, and he has the wise-ass mouth that Deadpool possesses.
All I ever wanted was to travel to far-off, exotic places, meet new and exciting people, and then kill them. So I became a mercenary. My name is Wade Wilson, and I love what I do.
Liev Schreiber is pretty good as Sabretooth. He's not perfect, but he's pretty decent. Another good thing about this movie is the opening credits sequence. I love seeing Wolverine go through all of America's wars. He went through the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and now on to the bad of this movie. And this movie has plenty of bad in it. I was liking this movie quite a bit up until towards the end of the movie when I seen Deadpool for the second time. I mean the Deadpool in his mutated look towards the end of the movie. Deadpool at the beginning is pretty good. He was funny. He did a lot of stunts and action. At the very end, the people who've seen this movie know what I'm talking about. It's not really Deadpool anymore. It's more like Barakapool. I've heard a lot of people say this because he looks a lot like Baraka from the Mortal Kombat games. They took the merc with the mouth and they took away his mouth. What's wrong with these people? And they tried to put other mutants' abilities into his body. They gave him long adamantium swords in his arm. They gave him teleporting abilities. Now, I didn't have a big problem with this because I did a little research. I found out that Deadpool wears a device that allows him to teleport. But they gave him Cyclops' optic blasts. And then they brought out the adamantium bullets. Now let's just say for argument that adamantium bullets could actually pierce Wolverine's adamantium skull and they would enter his brain. Why would that cause him to have amnesia? Wouldn't whatever parts of his brain it would destroy just heal back and his memories also come back to him? This part of the movie did not make any sense to me at all. Another thing that's really bad about this movie is some of the special effects shots. In particular, the scene in the bathroom where he's looking at his new claws in the sink. These claws didn't look real at all. They looked completely CGI'd and fake. This was a very simple scene. They could have had real claws on his hands. There's no reason that they need to put CGI claws in this scene. And the only time that we need to see CGI on Wolverine's claws is when they're going in or coming out of his hand. Otherwise, they should always be the real claws. Now, there's a scene towards the very end of the movie where they show Professor X. Now, I might be wrong about this. Please tell me if I am. But in this scene, Professor X, he looks CGI. It looks as if they took a stuntman with a bald head and then just CGI'd Patrick Stewart's face over his face. Why did they do this? Could they only afford to use Patrick Stewart's voice? They couldn't afford to pay him to be in the movie? One of my biggest problems with the movie is that there's too many characters in it. It's another problem I had with X-Men 3. They seemed to just cram as many X-Men characters as they could into one movie. We did not need to see all these extra characters. We did not need to see the Blob. We did not need to see White Queen. We did not need to see Cyclops. And I'm afraid to say this to all you fanboys out there, but we did not need to see Gambit. You can have characters such as Deadpool, who is involved in the Weapon X program, and it would make sense. When you have characters like Gambit and the Blob, who were never part of the Weapon X program, it doesn't make sense in the movie. I would have liked to seen perhaps maybe X-23 in the movie, if only to see her in maybe a test tube of some kind, but to show that she was there, I would have appreciated it. This movie did not need to tie into the other X-Men movies. It should have been a standalone movie about Wolverine and how he got his adamantium claws and about the Weapon X program. Another complaint that I have about this movie is something that seems to be a trend in a lot of movies nowadays, and that's the changing of races, of characters. In this movie, there's a character named Silver Fox. In the comic books, she's an Indian, or if you want to be politically correct, she's a Native American. In this movie, she does not look Native American. I did a little research on the character of Agent Zero in this movie. Now, I found out that Agent Zero is in the comic books, but he was originally called Maverick. Doing my research, I found out that Maverick is of German descent. Now, let me ask you, does this guy who's playing Agent Zero look German to you? In the early stages of this movie's production, a photo was leaked onto the internet of this movie, in which you see Wolverine, and in the background, if you look closely enough, you can see a Japanese building. This, of course, refers to the Wolverine miniseries, which took place in Japan. This is what I was expecting from the movie. I don't understand why they didn't go with this. I would have loved to see Wolverine in Japan and possibly have him fight Silver Samurai, or even perhaps Lady Deathstrike before she was changed by Stryker. Another complaint I have about this movie is that it has barely any blood at all. Normally I wouldn't mind this, but the main character is Wolverine, a character who basically has knives in his hand, and he goes around stabbing a lot of people. But when he stabs people, there's no blood. Why is this? Now, some people may say, well, maybe this is because this movie is PG-13. Now, I've seen quite a few PG-13 movies that had more blood than this movie right here. In an animated movie that came out a few months before X-Men Origins Wolverine, the Hulk vs. movie had more blood than this movie. Now, it's pretty bad when an animated PG-13 movie featuring Wolverine has more blood in it than a live-action PG-13 Wolverine movie. And it's also pretty bad when a PG-13 animated movie featuring Wolverine, which is only 45 minutes long, gets more in depth about the character than the live-action movie. If you want a really good movie that explains Wolverine's origins, I suggest you watch Hulk vs. Wolverine. For those of you who may not know, this movie was filmed with at least 2, maybe 3 alternate endings. I have only seen 2 so far. There's a scene with Deadpool coming back to life, and then there's a scene with Wolverine in Japan having a drink in a bar. The scene with Wolverine in the bar in Japan is supposedly a sneak peek at a possible X-Men Origins Wolverine sequel. Now, if they do have a sequel, I'm hoping that they get a new director or get a new producer or somebody that can make this movie better. It's also possible that there will be a Deadpool spin-off movie. Now, I'd like to see this because I feel that Ryan Reynolds' talents were wasted in this movie because he's only in this movie for only about 5 minutes. Wolverine is one of my very favorite comic book characters, and it really disappoints me to see this movie done the way it was done. So, my final grade for X-Men Origins Wolverine is a D+. I'm Tony Beers, and I'll see you next time.